Yo, what is up guys? It's your boy Asian, and today we're talking about another one of my favorite cameras. It's the new camera. It's the Z30, the Nikon Z30, which has quickly become, oh, you can see my screen, which has become quickly my favorite camera of all time. And so far it has replaced my Sony ZVe10 as the go-to camera. Like, I'm taking this camera pretty much everywhere I go. And this is a great little camera that you can get, and it's released now for a couple of days, for a couple of weeks. And I have been non-stop using this camera for the past 3 weeks, and I can't wait to talk about how this camera is one of the best cameras that you can buy out there. So yeah, let's get started. So one of the main things that I want to talk about this camera versus the ZVe10 is that this camera is much more robust. You can look, the grip is right here, it's perfect. I don't have to buy another accessory from Small Rig where I have to get a better grip on the camera. The camera is just like so compact, but yet it feels like a tank. It feels so durable in my hands, and I feel so confident that I can take this anywhere, pretty much, especially with my ND filter on. I can take it anywhere I want, and I can just like go and take a shot versus the Sony. I always had my doubts if that camera was gonna slip out from my hand, or if that camera was going to just not be as much durable. Of course, I had the cage, the Small Rig cage with the camera, but even with the cage, it felt like if you dropped the camera, it was over. It was game over. Even from the lowest height, if you dropped that camera, it was probably gonna be the end of that camera. But like, not recommending you should drop your cameras. Do not do camera drop test. But with this camera, it just feels so much secure, so much better about taking this anywhere, and knowing that, hey, like a couple of scratches and scuffs aren't gonna do anything on them, because the outside is so rubber but yet so thick, and it feels like it's really good in your hands. No jokes on that. But yeah, this is a great little camera, and I've been using this non-stop, and I wanted to make this video for someone out there, a content creator, or if you're just wanting to get a good camera for under $1,000. I think honestly you can't go wrong with this camera. This camera comes with a lot of button layouts. All these buttons are amazing, and you can pretty much configure this button to anything you want. Buried under the G2 video settings, there's so many things that you can change these buttons to. Even though the record button is right here, you can change the record button to this or any other button that you see here. And I think this is one of the most customizable camera that you can get out there. So for durability, it ticks off my list. Part number 2. This camera is interchangeable lens, just like how the Sony ZVe10 and the Canon M50 is, and that's one of the things that you kind of want as a content creator, to have multiple lenses and a wide area of lens collection, so you can put pretty much anything. So even if, I don't know, 2 years from now or a year from now or 3 years from now, this camera is still going to be a pretty good camera if you put another lens to it, because this shoots at 4K 30 frames per second uncropped. Yes, uncropped. And this is under $1,000 camera, and it shoots 4K 30 without a crop, whereas the Sony ZVe10, you know, it gets a 1.6 times crop. So when you're taking a shot with this camera with the kit lens, this is the kit lens right here. It comes with a 16 to 15 millimeter kit lens, and a 16 mil is actually gonna be something like a 16 mil rather than like a 24 mil on the Sony ZVe10, because of that 1.6 times crop. So without any kind of crops, I think this is a winner when it comes to, again, that budget camera for content creators, for vloggers, and for anyone who is just wanting to be a beginner in the camera game, I think that's one of the best things that you can have for a videographer, is having no crop, because you want to get to that almost full frame kind of picturesque where it looks really good. And this brings me to point number 3, which is probably the most important point that you guys have been waiting for, and that honestly it matters to me a lot, is that the photos and the videos. So you can see the videos right here, they're shot pretty much at the same focal distance and with the Z30 and the ZVe10, and you tell me how this looks. In my opinion, the Z30 is way more crispier and way better than the Sony ZVe10, but let me know how you think this video looks. And with that being said, we're gonna move on to our next point. Number 5, this is a weather sealed camera. Now, this does not mean that you can put this camera and put it in water and it's gonna be okay. No, it's not gonna be okay. Don't do that with any cameras. But this gives you that peace of mind that if there's even a little bit of rain, there's a lot of weather sealing around here, and this camera is going to be okay, versus the Sony ZVe10 again lacks on no weather sealing, and if there's even a little bit of rain, then well, your Sony ZVe10 is probably going to be toast. So with this camera, if there's a lot of rain, then I would just put it in your bag and not take pictures, or if you have a lens hood, then you should probably have a lens hood attached to this when you're taking pictures at on rainy days or something like that. But this gives you that peace of mind that whenever there's bad weather, when it's cold or when it's raining a little bit, then you can still take pictures with this thing, and this is going to be okay, versus no weather sealing on ZVe10 definitely does make you question. There's a lot of cons to this camera that I am also going to share, not just the pros, because that would just be unauthentic of me just to say the pros and not list out the cons. One of the cons of this camera is the lenses. So there's not a lot of lenses that you can buy for the Z, especially if you want to get that 1.4 kind of f1.4 lenses. You can't find a lot of them, and if you do find something like f2 lens or something like that, it's gonna cost you a lot of money, because it's originally coming from the manufacturer, which is Nikon, and they're gonna charge you quite a lot of money to make those to get those lenses. So it's better off not to spend your money on lenses right now, because the lens collection is not as nearly as much as what Sony's have. They do have lenses that you can put on this camera, but it's going to be way more expensive than what you can get with Sigma or Tamron lenses for the Sony E-mounts. Another thing that kind of annoys me is sometimes when you put this in manual mode, which most times I'm putting this in manual mode, or it's in the U1 mode of the camera, which is a user set menu system that you can put, and you can program this camera to be exactly how you want it to be on the user 1 setting. So whenever I'm putting it on user 1 or manual mode, I do hear this kind of electronic shutter that makes kind of like a weird noise, and I think the best way to do that is I put the camera literally next to it, and you can hear it. It makes that noise, and it's not ideal. It's not a deal breaker, but again, it makes that noise, and a lot of people are annoyed with that noise, especially when one of my friends who also got this camera, he's really annoyed with that shutter. So again, it's not a deal breaker, but it does make that noise, which is kind of annoying, and I wish it didn't. But it does have focus breathing, and it's a little bit, just a little bit more annoying than you get on the M50. Well, actually, no, M50 is pretty bad. If you're getting any camera, get the ZVe10 or this camera. I recommend this camera, but do not get the M50, because the 4K on M50 is absolutely terrible. Do not get that. Also, the crop is insane on that. So, that's one of the other problems that I have found out with this camera. Second problem, honestly, a little bit annoyed, but not as much. But the third problem that I've encountered with this camera is that obviously you can put the battery right there and then the SD card goes right here. But the problem with this is it only records if you put a 256 gig SD card or 512 gig SD card. You would think that the video is gonna record to whatever the capacity of the SD card is. But fun fact that I found out with my 256 gig SD card is that if you put the 256 SD card, you're gonna get 2 hours and 5 minutes of footage recording. Versus if you put 128, you're gonna get an hour and 57. So there's only about 8 minutes of difference when you put 128 versus a 256 SD card, and that's double the storage. So it doesn't make sense why it's doing that. I think it has a recording limit of 2 hours and 5 minutes, and that's what it's stopping at. But just to be on the safe side, get the 128 gig SD card. Do not get the 256 because it probably won't record after that 2 hour and 5 minutes. So just to be on the safe side, you should probably get the 128. I don't know why we can't get the 256. I wish we could, because that leaves me with more data that I can shoot without changing the SD card. But yeah, something annoying with this camera that I hope Nikon can fix with a firmware update or something like that, especially with the focus breathing. If you can fix that, Nikon, if you're listening to this, fix that with a firmware update. I'll love you forever, please. Now, this is how the camera sounds and records, and you can see this. I'm recording it in manual and everything is on here. The autofocus is incredible when it comes to this camera, but I'm looking at the same camera over here on my scene on OBS, and it's so choppy that you can see that this is clearly not gonna be a good streaming camera because Nikon really has to do a firmware update. But this is a very good camera just right out of the box, and it takes very sharp images like this one here, and the audio that you're hearing from is the audio that the camera gives you, the original audio from the camera. So I have not mounted any of my sounds or devices onto the camera. This is the onboard sound that you get from the Nikon. If you're using this, I really don't recommend you use this for studio streaming or anything like that, because there's a lot of delay when it comes to that. But at the same time, you can use this on the go, like how this camera is told that it is a vlogger style camera. So this is a great camera for vlogging, but as you can see here, this is not a very good camera for doing these kind of streamings or streaming videos. This brings me to a final point. The last point that I don't like about this camera is this: the lens. You have to manually turn it on and turn it off. Like, it's not an inconvenience, but I've been so spoiled with the Sony ZVe10 that it automatically retracts the lens and it automatically just goes and you're ready to shoot the picture. So I wish Nikon could do that, but totally okay because this is a kit lens, but you have to manually turn the slider on and off whenever you're unmounting the lens, and it's kind of annoying, Nikon. I wish you just put like a lens that retracts and goes out like how the Sony ZVe10 has, especially considering this cost $50 more than the Sony ZVe10. So I don't know why that's not included in the whole kit with the camera, but kind of annoying. Also annoys a lot of people that I have given this camera to, and some people that have the camera have also said the same thing, that they're quite annoyed with this because you don't have to deal with that on the Canon or the Sony side. So Nikon, if you're listening to this, the second version of this camera better not have that. But yeah, those are some of the cons that I think about this camera. Other than that, this camera is very good when it comes to that under $1,000 cameras that you can buy in the market right now. And just out of the box, without even tinkering with the settings, just putting it on auto. I think it's a little bit saturated on auto when you take pictures or videos, but it's alright to the point that if you're a beginner, then you're totally gonna be fine putting this on auto and taking great pictures and great videos just out of the box. But yeah, that's my review on this camera. Hope you enjoyed it. Thumbs if you liked it. If you didn't, then, well, they took the dislike button, so there's not much that you can do, but I'll see it anyway. So if you want to dislike it, go ahead, dislike the video. Let's make this the most disliked video on the whole internet. But yeah, this is a pretty good camera and an excellent buy for someone who is looking into just getting into cameras, is a beginner, or is a beginner YouTuber on YouTube or any other platforms. Oh yeah, by the way, this does TikTok videos, so if anybody who is a wannabe TikToker or shorts creator or something like that, you can definitely take pictures and videos with this thing like that, like on a vertical 16:9 aspect ratio, a 9:16 aspect ratio. So it's gonna do the auto rotate and everything, and yeah, it's good for TikToks if you wanna up your TikTok game. But yeah, if you're looking this on YouTube, I'm guessing you're gonna be a YouTuber and not a TikToker, but you do you, boo. Great camera for TikTok. Maybe that's gonna be the thumbnail. Alright, I'm gonna see you next time. Let me know how you're doing, you beautiful people. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.